Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. Well, Chris, very exciting episode. We just got done talking about all sorts of other nonsense. We talked about Star Wars versus Star Trek and did our usual spiel about that stuff. We just did our whole thing about turning 60, and that sucked big time. But I think we're gonna live, right? We both decided we're gonna live.
Yeah, we
But
decided.
Chris, turning 60, it's time for new beginnings. And
Yes.
I'm so embarrassed to tell this guest this fact. So I'm just going to save it until we actually open up the liquor cabinet and invite her on the show.
Okay.
It's humiliating, the fact that we have never had a guest like this on the show.
Never.
After how many episodes? My God. So, Chris, you love it when I say this. Without further ado, let's open up the liquor cabinet and let's welcome my good friend, comedian extraordinaire, Karen Rontowski.
Hi. How's my internet holding up?
It's good. The
Okay.
interweb is okay. We
It's
can
nice.
see you and hear you, and by God, Karen, that's not bad.
That's all we need.
Is this the right
yeah.
time to tell Karen the big news about why this is a special thing for us and something we've never done before?
It's the elephant in the room, and I think we should just say it. So Karen, over the last 70 some odd, almost 80 episodes, we have made fun of the fact that in the 70s and 80s, it was profoundly male dominated. Sexism and misogyny was just the way it was. It just was everywhere. It was institutionalized. I don't even know that many of us knew it was even happening.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
Chris and I laugh about it all the time. We make fun of it. And yet, you are the first female guest we have ever had on this damn show. And I don't even know. I have no effing clue why that is. It's a complete mystery. Chris, can you help me?
Yeah, you're a sexist pig. Is probably
that must be it.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what else to say.
In our defense, we have actually, in our defense, we have not had a lot of guests. We talk about guests and we've gotten here and there. So it's not like we've had 40 guests and all of them have been guys, right? So that is probably our most solid defense.
Yeah, I'm just not buying it.
However, yes.
Right.
However, especially when we, again, and some of the stuff we'll talk about it. And yes, as we've dived into all of the old pop culture stuff that Jeff just referenced, all of the attitudes and the mores and the comments and everything else that was like, yes, are not only outdated, but really kind of offensive. Of course, we play them for laughs.
Yeah.
But it's just like, yes, let's get a woman. So you are essentially the Jackie Robinson, the Rosa Parks, the Amelia Earhart.
Wow, Chris.
Although maybe not Amelia Earhart because we never know what happened to her.
Wow.
But you have broken whatever ceiling we have on Nice Pull, and with your backstory, with what you do and how you do it, it's been a long time coming. So.
Well, guys, I gotta dig in because let me do a quick a better intro here for Karen so everybody knows
Please do.
Why this is so special. So Karen Rontowski is a name that many of you watching the show have already heard. If you're our age, which you probably are if you're watching this, you have Facebook. And if you have Facebook, you have definitely seen lots and lots of ads for Karen over the years. She is a absolute A-list comedian that has been doing it for a really long time, a total pro, and a really cool twist on her type of comedy. And she is absolutely, and I know Karen is very humble, but she is exploding right now in popularity. I've known Karen since the 90s when I was dabbling in stand-up comedy back then. But Karen, I'm gonna turn it over to you. We are so excited to have you here. And you have a show in like an hour. Karen,
Mhm.
I got word that you might have some cherished object that dates back to the olden days. Is this correct?
I I do, and let's just say Mercury is retrograde because it's so on brand for me to put that warning out.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
so because I know you guys do like trivia and stuff like that. So this is from the 70s, and so when everybody else had Barbies, I had an Emerald doll. An Emerald was a witch. And she had a witch hat and she had a witch thing. And you could not separate me from this doll. And I kept it all my life. I just, everywhere I went, I kept it. And when I moved from Las Vegas to San Diego, I lost it. It was
Oh
gone for good.
no.
Oh,
And couldn't find it anywhere. And
traumatic.
about 3 years later, I go home. My parents are selling their house. They're getting everything out of it. This is back in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And my mother comes out of the attic and goes, "Hey, you don't want this, do you?" And it's the doll.
Oh my God.
Like it was.
Wow.
Wow.
So now this is what's weird because everyone goes, "That was the doll you loved? This is the doll." Okay. I lost her
Oh,
little hat and her other
interesting. All
stuff.
right.
Okay.
She's very tiny.
Isn't
Yeah.
that she is?
Yeah.
But for a kid, like that's a weird, like the eyes used to light up. It was called
Nope.
Oh,
Emerald. So I
wow.
guess
Green hair, emerald
green
green.
hair,
Got it.
and yeah, she used to have a little hat,
Okay, I was gonna
and I
ask,
I
yeah.
brought her to college.
Well,
Yes, I brought her to college and everywhere, and yeah, and then when I lost her, she made it cross country.
I mean, why would we ever have heard of that, I guess, Chris, but I've never
mm,
heard of an emerald doll. I'll be darned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
very
outstanding.
rare, like $400 on
oh
eBay.
my gosh. So was she supposed to was her character that she was a witch? Am I getting that correct? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. So Emerald, maybe it's a play on the Emerald City and the Wizard of Oz. I'm just guessing. I don't know, but who knows?
Hmm.
But you
could be. Could her
yeah.
green eyes used to light up, which now seems almost more terrifying. Um,
I'd say so.
that was my doll.
Chris and I have had many discussions on scary dolls, whether it was the Trilogy of Terror, which was the little Zuni warrior doll that was trying to kill
Yes,
Karen Black, or
Karen
Mm-hmm.
Black.
yeah,
Yeah.
or Taki Tina that was going to kill Telly Savalas on the Twilight Zone. Just dolls in general. But your little Emerald doll looks nice. She looks okay.
And you guys all know the Chatty Cathy story, right?
Mm-mm. We know who Chatty Cathy
I
is,
know
but what's
So,
the
Chatty Cathy.
story?
There's a
Yeah.
story. Okay, let's hear it.
yeah, Chatty Cathy was the very first talking doll there ever was.
Hmm.
And they got so many complaints after the doll came out about male voices coming out of it when the doll was off, and they couldn't get it to stop talking. And it like if
Oh,
you look up
crap.
that story, it's really interesting. Like they almost had to they had to recall the doll because they were like, why is a man's voice coming out of this
Oh
doll?
my
And
god. Wow.
That
right, I read a it's a true story that was back in like the 50s
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
But there's a good book called The Exorcist Handbook, and she doesn't let anything in her house that has eyes, pictures, or anything like that because she says dark magicians can see through them. So there, sleep well.
wow. Wow. Well, had I known, because again, much like uh, much like your history with Emerald, I have a and again, we just mentioned ventriloquism dolls who made a guest appearance on the show. Who I had since I was 6 years old. His name is Willie Talk, and had I known, Willie Talk doesn't get out much, but I have had him since I was 6, and age 6 was a long time ago, and he is I used to share a room with my brother, and he used to cover him up at night because he couldn't sleep. I have terrified family members and neighbor children for generations just by bringing. Well, someday they're going to have to meet because I can relate because Willie talk, and then we stumbled across. There's a Netflix documentary out recently about Eddie Murphy, and he even has a picture with the same Willie talk that I had. However, his was black, which was interesting in itself. But anyway, I digress. Enough about Matt Willie talk.
Well, Jeff, I think Jeff knows in my act, I have a joke about, and this is true, ventriloquism wasn't a form of entertainment. You'd hire a ventriloquist to speak for the dead at a funeral.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And it's creepy,
Jesus.
but funerals would be way better attended if we still did that.
Oh my God, that's
and
right.
way creepier,
That's right.
I think. I mean,
Yeah.
it's wow.
Yeah. People would be like, wow, dad looked great. But what was with all the dick jokes? That was kind of weird.
Willie Tyler and Lester are pretty funny at the Comedy Store, but
yeah.
that got a little dark at Uncle Ed's funeral. Jesus, what is going on with Waylon Flowers and Madam at a funeral? That would be something. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know anything about Willie, but I do know there's a lot of ventriloquists that request an extra hotel room for the doll.
I think we've just discovered a Netflix documentary right here. This sounds like it needs to be looked into. For God's sake. Karen, that is so cool. I'm gonna have to now do research on Emerald to find out what is going on with that doll. I don't recall ever seeing her, but yeah, $400. That must be pretty rare.
And I think that would be new in the box.
Okay, yeah,
Got it.
sure.
Got it. With working creepy eyes.
Not abandoned in the attic. Just like,
Not this one.
no,
Yeah.
that's
Chocolate
right.
milk
But to
stain,
me,
on the back or something like that. Well, Karen, let me ask you though, like if this is, and I'm sorry if this is a really basic question, but the chicken and egg question is like, what came first? Was it the comedy and then the and then the psychic part, or the psych? I mean, obviously you melded them together and it's worked, but which came first? And then how did the second one come in?
well, I was probably always like Jeff into the unexplained and psychics and stuff like that. And I really kind of started doing comedy first, but they kind of came at the same time. I used to go see this wonderful lady that would read tarot. She was actually in Escondido. I still call her my teacher. And she said, you should get a deck and you should learn this. So I was doing both. And then one day I was like, because comedy, especially when you start, it's so feast or famine. You're working 4 weeks, you're not working any weeks. And I was like, I wonder if I could start a little business on the side. And then that business exploded. And I think it's probably been 20 years since the first time I took the cards on stage. And it was just like, that was always what I wanted to do. But people were like, it was funny because in the beginning I was like, well, it's called psychic stand-up. And they were like, yeah, that's kind of hokey. Why don't you just come, and if you want to do it on stage, you can. And then what literally happened last year was someone said to me, this is selling out and people are so curious just because of the name. And he said, do you want me to book you all over? And I was like, yeah, that would be great. And that's how it happened. But I was really just doing both all the time. And like Jeff knows, I was always a paranormal investigator and all the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Got it.
For sure. And Karen, not only is she my soulmate when it comes to being open-minded about the UFOs and the aliens and all that stuff, but also ghosts. Oh man, Karen is a accomplished paranormal investigator. She really does go in and check stuff out. And that was the next topic I wanted to bring up, Karen. Obviously, I've regaled you with my ghost story at my house and all the crazy stuff that happened. But what is the weirdest thing or just the most memorable thing you can think of in the world of ghost hunting or exploring?
Right?
Do you have any good stories?
I have a bunch. They do run along the dark side.
Ooh,
if you're okay
yeah,
with
we're
that.
okay. Oh yeah,
we're ready. Jump in.
So I work with people who are way smarter than me, and we help people that are having trouble in their home with not just people that are like, hey, I there's very light stuff, but every once in a while if someone has a real problem in their house, they contact me. I have them fill out a very long inquiry, very long form, and then I go over it with my friends who know everything. And one is actually a real demonologist, and a couple of people who like to stay in the background who you may have heard of, but they are just brilliant. They can kind of go through this and sift through and go, it sounds like this, and this is what you have to do. And it's wonderful. So one time I get a call from a friend, and you'd always know it's a problem when someone says, listen, I don't even believe in this, because that means they've ignored it. It's gotten worse. They've denied it. I'd rather deal with 100 people who are overreacting than one person that calls me and says this. So but it was a friend, so I didn't make her fill out the form. And
Right.
she said, oh, can you stop by my house? And she told me a couple of the stories. And then I called my investigating partner, and they were bad. But when we got there, she goes, oh, and I forgot to tell you this one. And that's the one she should have told me first. And she goes, yeah, one day my roommate was home alone, and we don't have any rope. And for some reason, there was a rope. And when I came in, it was hung around her neck and she was hanging from the
Who
ceiling.
was?
The roommate. Like
What?
there was just a rope
What?
that snaked across the room and picked her up. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. Like you're talking full on
Just
poltergeist shit. Like, oh
demonic.
my God.
Yeah.
That's
And
Yeah.
it
And
lifted
which
her
is,
up?
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
And she goes, and I was like, yeah, that's the story you start with.
You didn't
That's the
lead with
one
that?
you
Yeah.
open with.
Talk about burying the
that's the story.
headline.
That's the story that makes me run
Wow.
out the door. Actually, right? I mean,
Karen,
Right?
Karen, please tell me that you told her, don't leave me hanging. You
oh
did say that,
God,
right?
oh
You must
God.
have. Come on. All right.
No, I had other concerns at that point. So anyway, we go in and the roommate is not there, and the roommate is completely compromised. This is not even a joke. This is as there's it's you know, I wouldn't there's 3 stages to possession, and she was in one of them. She wasn't in the final stage. And
Whoa, this is dark.
we're
All
all
right.
sitting around. It is dark. Do you want me to stop?
No,
God,
no.
no.
Okay. So we're sitting around and she's kind of telling me the stories, and I'm taking all this in, and my partner is sitting over here. She's like also taking notes. And all of a sudden this feeling comes into the room, and it is like someone is taking an x-ray of you that is like blasting through every cell of your body. And the girl is like, okay, it's here. And I know right away, this is bad. I'm in over my head. This is like, I should have called Tommy. I should have sent out the form. And my partner stands up, and she's like kind of moving like a robot. Like she can't, something's like, she's like this, right? And I go to get up to help her. And something in my head goes, no, 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 sit down. You can't. Everybody's on their own right now. You have to stay there. And in my head, I heard my tarot teacher say, they want your mind. You cannot give them your mind.
Whoa.
So I just sat there, and I kept looping in my head, my name is Karen Rontowski, and I know who I am. My name is Karen Rontowski, and I know him, over and over and over and over and over. We get out of this place. The roommate comes home, and now it's like, oh my God. So we get out of this place. I get home. It was the only time Tommy ever yelled at me. He was like, you didn't fill out the form. And I was like, no, I just thought it was, I was just going down to see a friend's house. And I was the only one that walked out of that. In fact, the thing even went to his house. Like it showed up everywhere. It showed up everywhere, but at my house. And I think I read later in a book, the Exorcist Handbook, when she goes into exorcism, she loops nursery rhymes so that nothing can kind of grab onto that. They can't grab onto that if you're looping something like that. So I tell everyone, whenever you are, even if it's nothing, you just keep saying that over and over and just kind of stabilize yourself. So that was really the worst.
Well, now, so what is the form? Is the form like a form they have to fill out, like in case anything bad happens, you don't hold us responsible, that kind of thing?
No, it's
It's a
is
waiver.
anybody on is there electrical issues in the house?
Oh, okay.
99% of the stuff we get,
Yeah.
it would also be, is anyone taking
Sure.
antidepressants or any other kind of
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
drugs? You know, some of the trigger ones are like, are there any strange smells in the house? Because they can tell by particular smells, or and then the story is anybody using a Ouija board, anybody doing this, blah, blah, blah. And it's pretty big, but usually you know, but my people, not me, can go, okay, this seems to be what's going on, and we'll do a couple more interviews and then teach people how to get rid of it themselves.
And Karen, I can't help but think, I'm sorry, my brain just flashed to that scene in Ghostbusters with Annie Potts. Do you believe in the paranormal, aliens, UFOs, the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot? And she's going down the entire list. Obviously, this is very serious and something did happen, but for some weird reason, I was just imagining sitting there with a clipboard, just going through the whole gambit, eliminating.
That was
It's like your medical history.
that was the worst one. Yeah, I could go with never dealing with that again. That would be very that was the worst.
And so when you say follow, what you mean is the entity or thing, the demon, it ended up at other people's homes. You just happen to be, it didn't go there to yours. Okay. Huh. Wow. Wow.
I believe me, I have some sort of protection. Even my demonologist friend was like, I don't know who's watching out for you, but you need to thank them every day. And I was like, I did. But I think it was literally that I heard that in my mind, and I started to loop that thought. And yeah.
So Chris, Karen and I talk about the woo-woo stuff all the time, for our buddy Chris, who is extremely open-minded, this is all kind of maybe we're talking about it very casually, and our buddy Chris is probably like, what the is going on right now? I just can't even
Yeah.
but I guess we all don't realize, and we kind of forget that stuff like this does happen. There is very little explanation for how it could be, plausible under normal circumstances, like Karen was talking about, electrical interference, or someone's on antidepressants, or there's a gas leak in the house, right?
Sometimes that's it. You're right.
It happens all the time, you guys. And there are people that really have dedicated a shit ton of time to understanding and studying it and trying to deduce and stay as objective as possible. So I know it's a weird world that Karen's describing, but it happens, man. I've seen stuff, myself. So yeah.
And then Karen, we both know Jeff a long time, and again, Jeff is our go-to guy with a group of friends of, like, when we have a question about a UFO or this kind of situation or something like this, the out of the ordinary. Jeff will always A, know what you're talking about, and B, have some thoughts on it. And so it's like you can't, like, stump him. But a question I have for you is, again, you do comedy and you do tarot readings, and now you're out there and you're talking about, exorcist guides. It's like, and my question is, I'm going to phrase it a very specific or very common way. And
how do I expect to keep a man?
No. We can get into that. Maybe we need to have you come back for part 2. And my question is, and don't answer it right away, is like, how do you sleep at night? And what I mean, how do you sleep at night knowing there's all this stuff, or having this experience? You know what I mean? To me, it's just like, if I had an experience, if I had a single experience that I could not explain, or that I thought I had an explanation, and the explanation was really creepy, scary, whatever you want to say, I would never go back to sleep again. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you just have your normal life and doing all of this stuff, knowing all this stuff, experiencing all this stuff? Does that make sense? Is that
It's a good question. Yeah. Well, for like a long time, well, first of all, at that time I had a dog, which animals are very good at sensing what's going on and what's wrong. So that was very comforting. But that stayed with me for a very long time. And even when I tell the stories, sometimes I can feel a thing start to, like, you kind of stay like, it's kind of like that thing knows you're talking about it. But I really do, sometimes, as much as we have, belief in scary things, you have to remember I really believe in angels and the good, and I feel connected, and I just have always kind of thought that stuff was there anyways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I actually sleep very well. But I will say this, I just had to move. I just moved back to LA. I had to live in upstate New York and take care of my parents. And upstate New York, I was kind of afraid all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very different. Utica, where I was living, had the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Underground Railroad. It was the mob retirement where, like in the 80s, they were throwing grenades in bars and having mob wars. Like, it was so dark. And I ended up in this house that was so haunted. And usually I work very hard. I keep where I live, I keep it out. In any form, I kind of know when something's in my house. But this was so, I can't even tell you. I rented a place there that was furnished. I was like, I'm getting rid of everything. I'm gonna stay there for a couple years, come back. I walked in and a picture flew off the wall, like up and
Jesus.
over. And there were bats in there. And
Bats.
at one point, yes, that was a real physical scare. Like, you walk in and a bat is coming at you. And at one point in there, I was like, what is going on? And a friend of mine that was a medium, she said, there's all these spirits in there from blah, 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 whatever. She had a whole story. And she said, you got to open a portal and cross them over, which I don't even, I was like, what is that? How do I do that? So she explains it to me. And I sit down in my bedroom and I light a candle and I do everything she says. And everybody cross over, whatever, da da da. And then I go for a walk to the store and I come back, and exactly where I was sitting, there is now a hole in the ceiling and water is coming out. And I don't know if you want to say that's coincidence, but right after I did that, a pipe right in that spot burst. And like I called my friend and I was like, what happened? And he was like, I think you shifted a lot of energy in there and it just kind of broke. But that was the kind of, I would be walking down the street and something would push me. And I never felt like that. I never had that before. And when I was there, I was always in these big old houses alone. And I hated that. I say you need to live where people will hear you if you scream.
There, Chris. Does that
That's
help
my
you?
rule.
Chris, does that help you go to bed easier?
Oh
Just
boy,
make
I'm gonna
sure you
sleep. I'm
just
gonna
make
sleep
sure
so well
you're
tonight.
close enough to people where they'll
Okay.
hear you. Look, I'm going to go out on a limb here because Karen and I have both witnessed solid objects, fly across the room. Chris, we've already talked about it. I've told you my weird
Mm-hmm.
experiences
Mm-hmm.
where physical objects have done that on their own. And I'm going to say something that may be reaching, but Karen, maybe you're with me on this. Comics in general, comedians, and Karen says this in her act, by the way, we have a bit of a dark side to us, right? You have to be a little edgy, you have to be a
Mm-hmm.
little raw, you have to be a little dark to really manifest comedy, usually speaking. And I do believe
Yep.
that as a result, we start to get kind of a thick skin. We start to get a little bit impervious to the kind of shit that would startle, upset, or freak out most people. It's like, that's nothing. Try doing comedy in a bowling alley, motherfucker. I don't care about a poltergeist.
Yes.
Try doing comedy for that goddamn
Um,
firefighters department where there was only 2 people and they were yelling at me. You
Mm.
know, sorry, I'm having a
yes.
personal
Yeah.
PTSD. Sorry, Karen. But I think there's something to that we're able to like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just ghosts.
Well, I think we're sort of magnifying glasses under a magnifying glass of everybody else. Like, I forget regular people can't just say things. My sister was always like, "You just say things," and where she's other people have to calculate. Oh, this is my boss, or I don't know if I could say all
Oh
those
God,
calculations go
that's
in.
right.
And I think, and when you live a life where you're running to the airport and you have to get the hotel room and you're trying to negotiate with a booker, you kind of get very like bang, bang, bang. But I think comics are also very in touch with their dark side. And that's kind of helpful. That's kind of authentic. Whereas when somebody's trying to hide that, then they're really crazy. But did you ever hear what Tina Fey said? She said, if you want to make regular people laugh, you put a guy in a wig, dress him up like an old lady, and have him fall down the stairs. If you want to make real comedy writers laugh, you have to actually push an old lady down the stairs. And I
Oh
think
my
that's
God. That is so true.
has to be
A-
yes.
and then sometimes, very rarely, you'll get comedians like Anthony Jeselnik or Jim Norton or whatever, where they don't care. They're just playing to other comics.
Yeah.
They literally, every
Yeah.
joke is not meant for a mainstream audience. It's just, I've always thought that was interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my God. Well, I think I just barely scratched the surface on the stories that you probably have in hauntings and ghosts and the supernatural.
Yeah. So
Yes, and don't be afraid, Chris, because these stories you're talking about somebody who went looking for that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think anybody should go to bed scared or everybody's fine. And
too
believe
late.
me, if any of this was
It's too
going
late.
on, you would know.
Yeah, I've got a ton of
Um,
questions around this stuff, but yeah, the answer, and I think there's always been a little bit of comfort in not knowing the answers. But then when you tell some of these stories, it's like, well, you got some answers, and they're pretty wild. And I'm visualizing some of their experiences, and I'm still processing the one get with the rope around the neck, and there had been no rope, and there had been, and it was just like that's straight out of Hereditary or one of these truly
oh yeah,
terrifying
Yeah.
that's a good
films,
poll.
and
Yeah,
there's nothing
Hereditary.
funny about that, and I think that's what
No.
it's just like that
No.
you can be in both of these worlds simultaneously,
Yeah.
and you know, and but you were both talking about it again, and you're the experienced comedian, so I had to like sit to the sidelines a little bit, but they do talk about. Right, you mentioned in Tina Fey's sort of her story about the differences and making the actual comedy writers laugh. And I remember hearing something a long time ago talking about, you know, comedy is tragedy plus time, right? So ultimately, you can laugh at just about. So even when these things are very dark, and I can see where your worlds
Yeah.
can kind of converge, and doing tarot cards I've never had a tarot. I've always been kind of like, oh, it's interesting. I never quite, but obviously you trained and you found out how it worked. Um, I've never had experiences like yours. Um,
Mm.
but I did speak to a psychic once. Um, and personal note here, and I was as skeptical as you could be in that regard, but he knew things. He knew things that he couldn't
Mhm.
possibly have known. And that's like, unless it's, you know what I mean? And it was like, unless he's the world's greatest detective and there's some information about me out there that I didn't know that was accessible. Um, and ever since that time, that was almost 20 years ago. So my questions
Yeah.
have kind of ramped up and I'm still looking for certain answers. And it's just like to hear these things, I find it fascinating. Um, in a lot of levels. A little scary, little bit.
Well, I don't need I hope that I'm never ever in that again. Like I know now. Like my friend that helps me out, the friend that really is the one that takes care of everything, that knows everything. He's always like, "You know what? Every once in a while you have to get burned. You have to find, you know what I mean? You he goes, that now you know. Now you know it's never going to happen again." And I was like, "You're absolutely right. It's never going to happen again." And also though, um where you were saying about the tarot and about all that stuff, I kind of believe it's all one, it's all intertwined. Like I don't think
Mhm.
psychic is a skill that everyone has it, and it's literally how much you watch those guys on the stock market. That's where their psychic ability falls. You watch somebody that's a nurse. They know what's wrong before you know what I mean.
Mhm.
They can calculate it and put it all together. But also there was you were saying there. Oh, what Jeff saw in my act. There is a big 15-minute long story that is all jokes, and it's about fooling around with witchcraft and getting something attached to me. And believe me, at the time it happened, it wasn't funny at all. and it was,
Well,
and then in the middle. in the middle of it, I started laughing because I was like, this is the most absurd thing that has ever happened to me. And then it took years, but it's a funny story in my act.
Chris, she's
Mhm.
underplaying it. It's not just a funny story. It is
It's
fucking
crazy.
hilarious when you get to the point, I guess, slight spoiler alert, where my demonologist was at the wolf, the wolf, the wolf preserve or whatever,
Sanctuary.
sanctuary. Of course he was. That's where demonologists are during the day, at a wolf sanctuary. Where else would a demonologist be?
Awesome.
And all of her
Starbucks?
jokes, they just hit you, and then I'm laughing so hard. And Karen, take this however you want, but the last time that I laughed that consistently and that hard, where I couldn't catch up to what you were saying because I was still laughing, was Don Rickles, of all things. I saw him
Oh, wow.
with our mutual buddy Mark Fernandez, and I again same thing, but I mean, dude, it was just I just wished you would slow down for the audience, but you're like, no, man, I got 45 minutes of shit to do. Then I got to get that tarot card table out. Then I got to do the tarot. I'm not letting up, man. If you guys
Right?
can't handle the jokes, I don't care if you die right now. Anyway,
And
yeah.
then I had to get up at the next day. I had to drive back to LA and 5 a.m. be on a
Oh my
plane.
Wow.
God. I remember. Yeah. Well, Karen, I know we're right up against it. Thank you so much. You got to get off to your next gig, which is so cool. Are you going to be around California anytime soon
Yeah,
for
social
upcoming gigs,
media,
or
how do
how
how do
can
people
people
find
find
you?
you? Yeah, yeah,
So everybody can find me at Rontowski on, which I know that's not easy, on Facebook or on Instagram or TikTok. And it's, just look up psychic stand up and my whole calendar is there. I'm at the Ice House. We're going to add another date at Flappers. I think right now that's all I got for California,
okay.
but hang on to my email list because a lot's
All
brewing.
right. Well,
Outstanding.
I'll let you get to it. Have an awesome gig, break a leg, and thank you so much.
Thanks.
We're desperate to have you come back on. This was super
Yeah.
fun. So thank you, Karen.
Sure.
Thank you for making history
And
on
we'll
our
get
show.
and I'll get the tech right.
Oh no, we're all
Thanks,
good.
Okay.
everybody.
Take
All right. Thanks.
all right.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know where to start. That was
Yeah.
quite a ride. We talked offline about Karen for a while. Um, in a lot of ways, not what I expected. In other ways, everything I expected. That was just again. I'm looking at the two worlds melding together, and her talking about her comedy and talking about her tarot reads and talking
Yeah.
about going into these houses. And you made the reference. I mean, we did. I thought about saying you're a Ghostbuster, right? You're something along those lines,
Totally. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Yeah.
just I think the thing that just kind of that I was found so engaging is it was like we were talking to a school teacher. It's like we were talking to a nurse. It was like we were talking, you know what I mean? She was so matter of fact about all of it that
Mhm.
just again made it more interesting. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Believable and relatable and little bit scary. Like I said, I don't. I'll have to think of something else when I try to go to sleep tonight because all these other things are just kind of bouncing in my head. But no, just fun. Just a really engaging conversation.
Yeah.
But now I know I got to go see her live myself. Just like I said, and hey, history. Finally, almost 2 years into the podcast, finally getting our first female guest, and hey, that was just like I said, that was a good time, and look forward to it again.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for sure. The next time she comes on, we'll take a little bit of time, Chris, and we're gonna have her do a tarot reading for each of us. So you have time.
mm-hmm.
You need to think of what it is that you want to learn about, and she's really good. I mean, she'll also make it really funny, but it's so interesting because even during her act, you will see her talking to people and bringing things up, and they're like, "Oh my God, yes, I am about to go to college, or I am about to buy a
Mm-hmm.
business or whatever." And it's like, how the fuck did she know that, right? So looking forward to that. If you guys go to nicepolpod.com and go on the website there, you can click on the guest link and we'll have all of Karen's info on there. But again, comedy, and psychic combined. Super cool.
Very cool.
Super excited about having her on again. What do you think, Chris?
Definitely.
Until next time.
Until next time, Jeff.